Welcome back to Unfiltered with Sam. Before we jump into our interview today, I want to remind you all that the channel is produced in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East. So if you like our content or you find it interesting, then please like, subscribe, and share, and press that notification bell so you don't miss on anything new that we drop in. Now let's get started. Our guest today is Stavros Kalenteridis. Stavros Kalenteridis is a professor of international relations, a political communication specialist, and an advocate for democracy. He pursued his studies in Greece, in the US, and in Cyprus, where he received his doctorate in history and politics. He's a founding member of two nonprofit organizations advocating for participatory democracy and promoting issues of history and politics. He lives and he teaches in Athens, where he is involved in various projects of political diplomacy while he continues his personal study of history and political philosophy. He also hosts on a daily basis a Greek language podcast which bears his name. And earlier this year, he launched his English-speaking podcast, Black Flag Media. Links to both podcasts as well as to his books will be found in the interview description below. Stavro, welcome to Unfiltered with Sam.
Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So Stavro, events are moving faster than we can process. I was telling you earlier when we connected that I had other questions in mind to ask you by yesterday, and by this morning they changed. So we'll just go with what's happening on the ground as we speak. I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion on the recent ceasefire deal in Lebanon? Is there a clear winner in your view? And do you think it will last, considering that the latest updates as we speak right now is that both Israel and Hezbollah have accused one another of breaching the ceasefire deal?
Yes, I think this is going to be a ceasefire that's going to take 60 days to get everybody out, meaning the Hezbollah troops north of the Litani River and then the IDF out of Lebanon altogether. I think that both sides lost, to be honest. And I mean, I can explain. The IDF or Netanyahu, I guess he lost because he couldn't actually gain any foothold inside southern Lebanon. I don't know if they managed to occupy any specific village or settlement, if they actually had any concrete gain or foothold inside the northern country. So it seems that even though they were successful in targeted assassination strikes, when they used their powerful air force and there's no air defense by the Hezbollah, so they were playing against no one. Actually. So it seems that they were successful, but when they had to fight against the guerrilla tactics, the unorthodox war of the Hezbollah militia troops, it seems that Hezbollah managed to keep them at bay. This was a huge blow for the legitimacy, and if we want to add the so-called fame of the reputation of the IDF. So they did not manage to defeat Hezbollah. This is their loss. On the other hand, the Hezbollah also lost in the sense that they launched their own war against Israel back in last year, 2023, after the Hamas attack, in solidarity to the Israeli bombardment of Gaza. So it seems that the Israelis managed to delink these two fronts, because Hezbollah was adamant by saying that we're not going to be stopped. We're not going to be stopping this war unless there's a joint ceasefire between us and Israel, at the same time that there's a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. So this was successfully delinked by the Israelis, and now the residents of northern Israel, the people that they're not afraid, because some of them are still afraid, the tens of thousands that had to flee their homes, they can return back in the northern part of the country. So this was a loss by Hezbollah. So I guess both of them lost in a way.
There were also 1 million Lebanese who were displaced from the south of Lebanon, and they were considered refugees in their own country, and they're also hoping on returning back to their villages and their homes, which is what's been happening ever since the ceasefire deal has been put into effect. And that's why the incidents of today, where 6 people were killed in their attempt to return to their villages as they were approaching. But apparently the Israelis are claiming that they approached too close to position of Israeli forces. And then you have 2 others who were injured by drone strikes, and 2 reporters also injured in another incident, and all this in just one area in Khairam. So it's I don't know, it's not going as well as expected. I don't know who's supposed to monitor the situation. I mean, it's supposed to be the Lebanese army that's supposed to be moving in, but Hezbollah has to be removed from their place. And if it seems that Israel is not actually leaving their boots on the, leaving by meaning their boots from the ground before they make sure that Hezbollah is removed.
Yeah, also the French and the US are supposed to be involved into monitoring the situation there. That's why I said before that regarding the Israeli people that had to flee their houses, that I don't know who's going to be, who's going to be willing to return that early. And I think it's really early. There's a 60-day plan for this phasing out of the hostilities, and I guess that is why. But also with the people returning back home, I think that the IDF is saying that some of the people that are returning are Hezbollah fighters that have left and now they're returning. Or I guess that's the narrative that the IDF is providing us. Again, I don't know how can you monitor the situation in the southern part of the country, and how can you monitor what Hezbollah has been doing when Hezbollah actually, their base of operations and their launching pods is underground, is in the tunnels. So I don't know how either the Lebanese army, the French, the US is going to monitor that. So it seems sketchy to say the least, but at least there's, and also there's another problem. The problem that there's no actually, I didn't see the deal, the ceasefire deal, because Benjamin Netanyahu is saying that through this deal, we maintain the right to strike against Hezbollah if the monitoring group, meaning the Lebanese army, the French and the US, if they don't do their job properly, and if Iran keeps funneling arms and weapons, arms and money through Syria inside Lebanon to Hezbollah, we will be able to strike. We do have this ability after this deal. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know if that's accurate.
It's correct.
Okay. All right. So this is big. So this means that I guess this makes it more of a win for Israel, if you ask me, because now they maintain the ability to reignite the conflict whenever they want to, and it doesn't have to be truthful when the IDF says in the future that we see some illegitimate activity, so they can do this whenever they wanted. Also, quickly, let me add that I think that I guess a big topic here to discuss is why this happened now. I don't know if you want to talk about this or
I was
something else.
Because the reality on the ground up until 72 hours ago, I think everyone was taken by surprise with the ceasefire, because we were getting the impression that Hezbollah is standing strong, they cannot be defeated. I mean, 48 hours ago, they were striking not Haifa, but Tel Aviv, and creating lots of damage. So what do you think happened? I mean, of course, everything was working in the background, but do you think it was Trump's re-election that influenced the ceasefire? Could Hezbollah's agreement mean that Iran actually told them, you have to go ahead and accept this? Because Iran is actually feeling the pressure with January 20 coming close, and they want to pull back from actively supporting Hezbollah, to regroup themselves internally maybe before January 20th, hoping Trump will handle them differently this time compared to his first term when he cut the funding and he withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. Because everything happened. If the winner wasn't Trump, would we have the ceasefire deal now?
Well, I think that it's a combination of both Trump, his election, getting elected, because he actually said, let me remind everybody that he said that I'm going to solve this conflict even before I'm sworn into office. So he said, just by me being elected, you're going to be seeing these conflicts being solved. So I guess he's going to try and take credit for this. My words. So I think this is, in a sense, Trump and his reelection, and the Israelis now they're switching gears. Now that they have someone that they have to deal with. Joe Biden was not an actual player in the bilateral relations between Washington and Tel Aviv. Donald Trump is going to be a problem for Netanyahu, and he's going to have to deal with him. So that's one major reason. The second reason is that, as I said, and as you said, the Hezbollah was not defeated, and they kept pummeling, they kept striking with rockets and drones inside Tel Aviv, inside Haifa, inside other areas inside Israel, even some days ago. So this was a major front for the Israelis that they could not move forward. They would not win this war. They were losing resources, manpower, and they simply wanted to turn off this conflict, switch gears, and focus on Gaza again. There's not going to be any ceasefire in Gaza. I see people discussing about this, and to me at least, it seems impossible simply because of the fact that the people supporting Netanyahu, the governing coalition, the ultra extreme people supporting him, they're not going to be. They told him outright that they will, they will not keep supporting him, and there's going to be a new election if he ever dares to have any ceasefire with Hamas. So that's not going to happen. They didn't threaten him to do the same with Hezbollah. So this was an easy way out. So they want to stop a war that it wasn't winnable. They did manage to. They succeed in a major, strategic goal that they had to return people to their houses, people that had evacuated from the north, and now they want to switch gears, one against Hamas and two against Iran. I think that after Trump gets sworn into office, I think that there's another Israeli strike against Iran pending. And this was implied even before the elections by the Israelis, that there's going to be another strike against us. They said back in the day that, yes, we took revenge for the October 6th, if I remember correct, attack by Iran, but we didn't but we need to strike back again because of the targeting of Netanyahu's house in Caesarea. That this is also something that they made this up as a new excuse for a new round of incidents between Israel and Iran, and I think this is pending. This is this is something that the Tel Aviv is working on, and I think that Trump wants this as well. They have been in touch. So Trump, both him and Netanyahu agreed on ending the Lebanon front because, again, it was limiting Israel's resources, and I guess they agreed on targeting politically, diplomatically. I don't know. I'm afraid that it's going to be an actual attack against Iran.
So what do you think Iran's role was in the ceasefire? Because Hezbollah is saying yes to the ceasefire, it must have had the green light for Iran. And why would Iran all of a sudden just give the green light? Is it that they are worried because of Trump assuming power January 20 and him possibly again, cutting the funds? And
listen, I think that both Hamas and Hezbollah are in a really bad spot right now. They're in a tough spot in the sense that, for instance, Hezbollah, I think that they did want this ceasefire. There is a level of support that one can enjoy from a population, but if actually what Israel had, if you remember, Netanyahu was threatening to turn Lebanon into Gaza. So if the people of Lebanon actually saw the destruction at the same level that the destruction was happening in Gaza in their own country, I think that Hezbollah was going to be weakened politically inside the country. So I think Hezbollah also wanted this to stop. They could not rationalize and support this conflict more than this. And the same goes for Hamas. If you actually monitor what the Hamas spokespeople have been saying recently, their message is really, really weakening. They are not as defiant as they used to be. They're headless. There's no leadership. I don't know where the leadership is. I just know that they left Qatar. I guess they're in Iran right now. So they're leaderless. There's nothing more that they have been really, really decimated by this campaign. So I guess both of these organizations wanted for themselves for different reasons, but Hezbollah wanted this deal to maintain its political legitimacy inside the country.
Yeah. Well, Hamas, ever since the truce being announced, has openly said that we are open to a truce leading to withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and a prisoner swap deal. And we hope that the ceasefire in Lebanon paves the way for an agreement to end the war in Gaza. So you're right in that. They do feel weakened because basically they've been abandoned with this ceasefire deal. Now that Hezbollah, their last active, not just in words, active supporter, has agreed to this ceasefire deal with Israel. And they're the only ones left fighting this war on behalf of the Palestinian people. I wanted to ask you about Syria because we have developments in Syria basically the last 24 hours. There's been a shock offensive by the Syrian opposition. They're apparently within just 5 miles from Aleppo. I don't know if you even managed to hear it today because I know you're also busy with your classes and everything. So they've taken over a dozen villages in the province of Aleppo, and they're just 5 miles from the city. And Assad just jetted to Moscow today to hold urgent talks with Putin. So your comment, because Syria definitely is the next target of Netanyahu for sure, because he's not going to just stop with, eradicating Hamas and Hezbollah. He's always been calling for the toppling of the regime of Assad.
Yes, and we have been seeing the constant bombardment of Damascus, even the air base, the Khmeimim base, which is a base that Russia has a depot there and some troops there. So yes, I think that Syria is the next target. It's an obvious target. Obviously, they're part of the so-called now they call it the axis of evil or the axis of resistance. We used to call it the Shia Crescent back in the day. The alliance of Shia or either groups or countries. So yes, Syria is the next target. It only makes sense, and I think that's what Netanyahu is trying to do by he keeps mentioning the possibility of another conflict erupting if they actually see that Syria provides again weapons to Hezbollah. Obviously, it's Iran behind them, but I guess this is the link right here that we're looking for, the support of Hezbollah, because Hezbollah was not defeated. The conflict will erupt in the future, maybe, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, 1 year. So that's a threat that Netanyahu failed to deal with. And I guess the main, not the main, the basic tunnel for support or country to support them through it's Syria, and basically it's Iran, but through Syria, that's their lifeline. And I guess they're targeting the lifeline of Hezbollah because they couldn't defeat them in the battle.
Well, the Russians have their bases there. It's their access to the Mediterranean, so it's not going to be. It's going to be definitely complicated.
Well, I remember the latest attack. It was a month ago, and it was inside Khmeimim base, pretty close to the Russians. And I think that there was some S-300 air defense missiles were activated, but the Russians didn't actually feel comfortable to actually use them against Israel. But it seems that, yes, there was a minor diplomatic issue between Israel and Moscow. But we have to mention that Moscow has been really belligerent politically against Israel. They have been really siding with the Palestinians during this, or against Netanyahu, I should say, during this year. So the situation is not good between Russia and Israel.
Yeah. So Assad jetting over to Moscow now, and it's definitely something that's of concern to Moscow itself, what's happening now in Syria. So we have to see how that's going to play out, being they're already involved on another front in the Ukraine. So leading to this, you have these two different in scope regional wars, but their players, their main players, being Russia and Israel, could end up now being intertwined. It's amazing what's unfolding over the last 9-10 days. So while our channel primarily focuses on the Middle East, the rapidly escalating developments on the Ukraine-Russia front demand attention. So this is the other regional war with the risk of spreading globally, and it's important to address its impact. So we've witnessed a hard to keep up reality on the ground in the Ukraine war over the last 9-10 days. We had the ATACMS and Storm Shadow, and then the landmines and NATO exercises off Finland, and the new NATO-US bases in Poland. Zelensky getting more emboldened and asking for tomahawks and cruise, and even nuclear warheads, and supported by the New York Times in this, and NATO's military committee chair Admiral Rob Bauer remarking to Bloomberg about considering preemptive strikes on Russia. And these are just the last 9 days. So what's your take on all that's precipitated these last 9 days, bearing in mind also Russia's recent doctrine change?
I think I should start by saying that yes, the two battlefields or battlefronts are really interconnected, and the latest example of this is the decision by the International Criminal Court to issue arrest warrants against Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, and the reaction that we're seeing in Europe or in the US, and the double standards against basically Putin. The latest was from France, that France, the foreign ministry issued a statement by saying that we cannot arrest Benjamin Netanyahu because he is a leader, so he enjoys diplomatic immunity, he's the leader of the state, and that Israel is not a member of the ICC, of the Rome Statute, which is exactly the same problems for the Russian case, but they didn't mention these issues back in the day. They just said that, yes, we will arrest Putin if he lands in France. So we see how everything is interconnected. The double standards is the latest example of this, how parallel these two wars are being waged in, and how globalized our country is, actually. So the latest development, I think it's a clear escalation by the outgoing administration. I think that the idea was to freeze the lines, the war zone, basically at the same place that we stand right now. So they wanted to freeze the bad line. So when we do have a new administration, and when there is a new round of discussions regarding Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine will have some bargaining chips, and I'm talking about Kursk, the occupied part of Russia by the Ukrainians. So this was the idea, I think, and I think that the Trump team agreed to that, and they used the Democratic, meaning the Democrats, the Democratic narrative. The Republican team did that. Mike Waltz, the incoming national security advisor of Trump, he said that Biden was right to give this green light to the Ukrainians to use the ATACMS because of, for instance, the North Koreans, supporting Russia. So this is an escalation that Russia actually began. So both the incoming administration and the current administration agree to this. I think it seems so. So this is an escalation, I think, by the U.S. side, because these weapons are really, really they're not game changing, both the ATACMS and the Storm Shadow or Scalp, but they will create casualties for the Russian side, and this also happened inside Kursk only yesterday. So I think that this is, and I think we're going to be seeing even more weapons being. I guess Biden is now trying to find more money through Congress. I don't know if he's going to have time to do so, but they're trying to find more money and more weapons to provide to the Ukrainians. And I think this is putting a lot of pressure to Moscow, because Russia actually said back in September, Putin actually said back in September, that these weapons would be a red line to us, and this would justify us attacking Ukraine with nuclear weapons. So this, it wasn't a bluff. and it wasn't now Biden calling Putin's bluff. It was Biden, an outgoing administration actually doing something that was unacceptable to the enemy being Russia. So I think that the Russians, they're not seeing any positive reactions by the Republican side. So I don't think they're going to be holding back, and that's why we're seeing this major attack the last 48 hours by the Russians. So I think that it's going to be really, really, it's going to be a hot Christmas, if you ask me.
So you mentioned about Russia changing their the dogma, the doctrine, as recently in September, and that's very worrisome. And the statements that were made by the Admiral Rob Bauer to Bloomberg were also. Could you elaborate on those statements, because those were really recent and maybe people don't know about them? Why were they
Yes.
worrisome?
Yes, basically, he is the leader of the military committee of NATO. He's the number 3 of the alliance. So this is a top official of NATO, and he's Dutch. And he said that we should basically improve on our doctrine as well. And when we realize, even though we're a defensive alliance, when we realize that we're being targeted by a Russian weapon, he clearly mentioned Russia. Instead of attacking and hitting the missiles, we should be attacking the missile launchers, the depots inside Russia. So he was talking basically about a preemptive strike inside Russia. If the alliance is sure that an attack is incoming, if it's definitive that an attack is incoming by Russia, he called for a preemptive strike. And this is not how defensive alliances work. And I guess nobody at this stage, at least, nobody's targeting is saying that NATO is going to be attacked again at this stage. So I think that with this rhetoric, we are escalating things that we shouldn't be talking. And not only that, he also said that even companies should find ways to accommodate the new war economy that's going to happen, that's going to emerge in a possible war against either Russia or China. So even business leaders, yeah.
Yes, please.
He said that even the business community should be able to switch gears to a war economy, basically, and find other ways and find other resources from other countries, either not Russia or China, to be able to deal in a war scenario. So I think this rhetoric is extremely, extremely troublesome.
Very, very concerning, actually. And Zelensky, he was advocating for the longest time for the ATACMS, and he ended up getting them. And now he's emboldened, and he's advocating for the Tomahawks and the cruises and even for nuclear warheads, and supported by the New York Times. So do you think we're going to reach that point also pretty soon even? Because we were always saying that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. You cannot place these things, these sort of capabilities in his hands. And yet they did with the ATACMS, of course, with the personnel that needs to go with them to handle them.
Well, I think that nothing is impossible with this administration, but they don't have time. I think there's not enough time to do this escalatory step. I'm afraid that they would be willing to do so down the line. Today, Putin was in Astana for a meeting of a summit, actually, of the CSTO, the equivalent of NATO, led by Russia, and he said clearly that if there is any transfer of nuclear weapons to Ukraine, that's gonna make the Russians launch a nuclear attack against Ukraine. So, I guess this is also a red line. I think it's clear as day where this is heading. Let's hope that this not happen. This is not going to happen, because again, the Russians are they're being crystal clear that if they do see nuclear weapons being transferred in Ukraine, they're going to be using all the destructive power in their arsenal, including nukes.
Yeah. Well, it's very concerning. I don't know. I mean, if time is, the events seem to be moving faster than what we expect. So actually, till January 20th, there's still a lot of time. And there are a lot of people working behind the scenes to destabilize everything, even Macron and Starmer and the NSA advisor to Biden, I forget his name now. So it's all very concerning. And
Jake
I don't
Sullivan.
know exactly,
Jake
Sullivan.
Sullivan.
Yes. And I mean, I don't know if Trump can do something before January 20th, with the post or just, what do you think?
Well, let me tell you, we have a new appointment now. The special representative for this war, for the war in Ukraine. We have a retired general. His name is Keith Kellogg. He's 80 years old, and he used to be he's a close associate of Trump. He used to work for him back in 2017 in the White House and the National Security Council, and he wrote a policy plan about how the U.S. should solve this war and how we should have a ceasefire. And there's 4 bullet points and of his ideas. And again, this is the special representative of the president for the Ukraine war. He has been.
Of the president-elect?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes, and again, he doesn't have to go through the Senate. This is an appointment, so he's going to be the guy dealing with the war in Ukraine. Keith Kellogg. So he wrote a plan back in last April, and in this plan, he said some things that I think that the Russians will find unacceptable, such as, for instance, he called for levies on Russian energy sales to use for the reconstruction of Ukraine, which is crazy. So he has some unacceptable positions. That doesn't mean that Trump shares his ideas, but that's his plan was basically he said that we should be providing the Russians some sanction relief, not a full sanctions relief, which is also a deal breaker for the Russians. The Russians are saying that if we go to a settlement, a peace or a ceasefire deal, the sanctions should be terminated because the sanctions were enforced when we invaded. Now there's no war, there should be no sanctions. So this guy is advocating for lifting some sanctions. He also said that we should pause NATO membership. The Russians don't want any pausing. They just want this to never happen. So I don't think that these ideas are going to go well with the Kremlin. But again, we'll see if Trump has his own plan. He said he has his own plan. He said that he has a clear plan, but he cannot share the plan with the world because it wouldn't work if he actually shared it with if he made it public. So I don't know.
Well, time will tell, and let's hope for the best, and let's hope that he will get the chance, and let's hope that he won't, once he gets the chance, or he's given the chance, he won't be following on the same route that Biden is trying to end his last few days in office, which is just very concerning what's happening right now. But Stavros, I wanted to thank you for your time and your invaluable insights very much. I really, really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good evening.
Thank you.